Hey guys, today we're going to cover the extrude tools. Quick reminder, this lesson is from our complete Intro to Blender course that we're offering for free for a limited time on YouTube. If you're new here, I'd recommend starting at the beginning of the course. I've added a link in the description. All right, go ahead and open up Blender and let's jump right in.
To begin this lesson, let's start another new file. So go up to your File menu, pick the option for New, General, and no need to save the file you were working on. We're going to jump right back into edit mode. To do that, press Tab on your keyboard. And in this lesson, we're going to take a look at the extrude tools. Now, we started a new file, so we may not see right offhand what the extrude tools are. So go ahead and hover over that right side of the toolbar here, click and drag it out till you see the names. And just beneath Add Cube, we see Extrude Region. And if you click and hold down, you'll see there's a number of extrude tools underneath. We're going to stick with the Extrude Region tool to start. I just wanted you to see there are several extrude tools that we'll be covering. So you can let go such that you have Extrude Region, then click on it to select it. Click once in regular space to deselect everything in your model. So for the extrude tools, you need to tell Blender what you want to extrude. So let's start by extruding a single face. And the extrude tools, as with most tools in Blender, they will respect the selection mode you have. So by default, the selection mode we have is up here. It's the vertex selection. We don't want to have a vertex selected right now. We'd like to have a face. So press, not on your number pad, but on the regular keyboard, press the number 3. That will switch to face selection mode. Then click once on the top face. You're in the Extrude Region tool, but it's like you're selecting which face you want to extrude. You could pre-select it if you were still in the Select Box tool by clicking it once before picking the Extrude tool, but with the Extrude tool, you can also click on that face once. It respects the fact that you're in face selection mode, and it gives you this extrude cursor on top. Now first, let's just see what this Extrude Region tool does. If you hover over this plus symbol, click and hold down and drag up and then let go, you'll see you've extruded the face up and you've extruded it in the normal direction. So what does normal mean? Well, every face in Blender has what would be called an outside and an inside face. The outside face, or the face that's facing out right now, that's pointing in the normal direction. So think of it as if there's an arrow, and in this case there is this yellow arrow, that's pointing perpendicular away from the outside face. So whatever direction that face is facing, that's the normal direction. The inside of the face would be the opposite direction from the normal direction. Don't worry too much about this definition of normals just yet. It'll be something that will be important, and we'll continue to uncover more and more about what normals are and why they're important in Blender and 3D modeling in general. But for right now, that's what the normal direction means. Perpendicular to the face, away from the face. And by hovering over that plus, we were able to actually just lock that in. So we clicked, we held down, and we dragged it up. Notice that these edges here, those original edges, were left in place. In looking inside of this object, we would be able to see that the original face was still there. So that original face stays there, and it's like we created another cube right on top of it, or extruded one right on top of it. Now, if you hover anywhere within this white circle, but not on the actual yellow plus, click and hold down and drag, notice that you're extruding, only now you're not extruding in the normal direction. So that top face is pointing still in the same direction, or it's staying on the same plane, but now you're extruding away freeform, so kind of in any direction that you want. Go ahead and let go of that somewhere. So that's more of a freehand extrude. Now, it could be, try this, click on that yellow plus and hold down and begin dragging up in the blue direction. It's in the normal direction right now. But you can press the letter X on your keyboard and move your mouse, and all of a sudden now you're extruding in the X direction. Try pressing Y and it will lock it in the Y direction. Notice that there's no volume to this extrusion. You're really kind of just almost sliding this face over, and it's having to drag a face along with it to stay put. Or press Z and you're back up in that Z direction. Go ahead and let go to set that down. Now let's undo back a couple of steps. So on a PC, hold down the Control key and press Z. On a Mac, it's Command Z. So hold that down again, and let's undo back to where we had that first extrusion. Hover over the plus, click and hold down and drag down, and you'll notice, again, as you're extruding this face down, go ahead and let go somewhere there. Notice that you didn't get rid of this top area. You didn't push the whole thing down, so that stayed there. You're creating essentially a new shape or a new face, leaving behind everything else. This will be important later when we start looking at some of the other ways of extruding things to just notice how this geometry is reacting.
Hey everyone, we're doing something a little unconventional here, and for a limited time, we're giving you access to one of our paid courses for free right here on YouTube, and this lesson is a part of it. Blender is a beast of a program to learn, but with the right approach, it doesn't have to be. That's why we created Blender Academy, to help people build the Blender skills they need and then go out and get the jobs they want. We hope you find these lessons to be a good investment of your time. If you do, and you're serious about learning Blender, head over to our website and continue learning with us. Thanks for watching, make sure to like and subscribe, and now, back to the lesson.
Now something to point out here, we're not going to cover it just yet, but in previous examples, we talked about transforming and doing it more accurately by turning snapping on. So it would be possible, for example, to get a particular view, like go over to your number pad and press 1 on the number pad to get a particular side view. And then you could go up and turn on snapping, click on that. And then you could start extruding while snapping to various elements, whether it be to the grid or to other geometry. We're not going to do that just yet. I just want to point out that all of those same rules apply with being able to get particular views and snapping if you want to extrude in precise ways. For now, let's go ahead and turn that snapping off, and you can orbit back to a regular three-dimensional view. Now, we've been extruding faces so far. Let's talk about extruding edges. So the extrude tool respects the selection mode you're in. We've been in face selection mode. But in your normal number keys on the top of the letters on your keyboard, so not the number pad, but the normal regular number keys, press 2. That'll switch to edge selection mode. Then click on this bottom edge to select it. Then go ahead and click and hold down on this plus and begin to extrude it. And at first you might say, okay, I'm extruding an edge. What does that mean? Well, that edge is being extruded away in a direction, in the normal direction, and at the same time, in order for it to be extruded away, it has to pull along an edge from both of the vertices there, which then creates a face. So when you only extrude an edge, it's really going to appear like you're pulling away a flat plane. Go ahead and let go. And you might wonder, what direction is this? So orbit into 3D, kind of to a side view like I have here. And remember, we're talking about the normal direction. Well, the normal direction for this face here would be, if I orbit back, would be in this direction. And this face here at the bottom would be down in this direction. Well, the edge here that is both a part of this face and that face, the normal direction for that edge is going to be the average between these two normals. So if you take a normal going this way and a normal going this way, the average would be down the middle of it, or 45 degrees away. So that's why this particular edge went 45 degrees in this direction when we used that yellow plus, which was to extrude it in its normal direction. Now let's orbit back over and undo back a step. So Control Z on your keyboard. This time, go ahead and click and hold down on that yellow plus and begin extruding away. Only while you're in the middle of extruding, press Y on your keyboard and then move your mouse away and let go. So it's possible to start extruding in the normal direction, but then press X, Y, or Z if you need to lock that direction. And if you orbit, now you pulled that edge away so that it's matching the same plane that it came from here. So that could be useful when it comes to extruding only an edge. Let's go ahead and undo back again. Control Z on a PC or Command Z on a Mac. You can also extrude a vertex. So let's try that. Press 1 on your keyboard to switch to vertex selection mode. And then click once on this vertex over here to select it. And then with the yellow plus here, go ahead and click and drag and let go. And at first you might say, well, it doesn't seem like anything happened here. Click on the select box tool and just click once in space to deselect everything. And it might be difficult to tell based off of the red or X direction axes being in the way, but if you kind of orbit around, you see what happened here was here's the vertex that got extruded. So from here, this vertex got extruded out here, and an edge was drawn in between them. And while it might seem a little strange to say, why would you do that? Why would you just need an edge? This will actually help us in the future to draw some shapes using this method. So where we can extrude vertices around, edges are going to be drawn from vertex to vertex, and we'll end up being able to draw some very particular things that we need to help us as we're modeling. So it's a little bit of an abstract concept now, but extruding a vertex can be helpful down the road. So far, let's go ahead and undo back though. So Control Z on your keyboard or Command Z on a Mac. So far, we've figured out that we can extrude faces, edges, and vertices. We extrude in normal directions, or we can lock X, Y, and Z, or we can just extrude freeform as we did when we clicked inside the white circle on the icon there. So if we remind ourselves, I'll press 3 for face selection, click once on a face, then click the extrude region tool. And we're talking about this white circle here, starting by clicking and holding down anywhere in there, but not on that yellow. That's where we can extrude freeform. You can select more than one thing at a time to extrude. So let's talk about that now. We have this bottom face selected. If you don't already, go ahead and click on it. Then hold down the Shift key and click on the face just to the side here. You've got 2 faces selected now. You can let go of the Shift key, then hover over that yellow plus icon, click, hold down, and drag away, and then let go. And what's happened here is you're extruding both faces, and you're extruding them in the average normal direction. So again, this face, an extrusion would go this way. This face, it would go this way. So the average of the two would bring them in this direction. And you can see here when you look from over the top, instead of this being extruded out this way, it went at a 45-degree angle, and so did this. Okay, this has all been extrude region. So the one thing we can think about is that we can extrude freely within this circle. We can extrude along the normal direction, or we can extrude along the X, Y, and Z axes. Now let's compare this to some of the other extrude tools. To do that, let's go ahead and undo back a few steps until we have the original cube. So Control Z on a PC, keep doing it, or Command Z on a Mac, keep doing it till we get back to that original cube. Let's also make sure that we're all on the same selection mode. So press 3 on your normal numerical part of your keyboard. That will make sure that you're in face selection mode. And then where it says extrude region, click and hold down, and let's go down 1 to extrude manifold and let go. Now with extrude manifold, you're going to be, if you hover over it, it will actually tell you something about the fact that it dissolves edges. So what happens here, go ahead and click and hold down on that yellow dot icon and then move your mouse up and let go. You'll notice that there aren't any edges left behind. And if you could look inside of this, there's no face left behind. So instead of extruding a new face and leaving behind the old edges and faces, it's actually just extending the shape up. The same is true the opposite way. So click and hold down on that circular yellow icon and go down and then let go. And you're now shrinking that down. You're not leaving behind the geometry up top, and kind of creating a hole at the top, as we did with extrude region, manifold will dissolve the edges. So it got rid of the edges that it no longer needed. Now we're going to jump forward and use a tool briefly that we haven't covered yet. And it's a tool that we're going to cover in more detail in another lesson, but this will really help us see where extrude manifold comes into play. But first, I want you to orbit so you get a little bit more of an over-the-top view like I have here. Then down a few tools, you see something called the knife tool. Go ahead and click on it. And again, we're not going to cover in great detail how to use the knife tool. We're just going to use it briefly so we can get back to the extrude tools. So hover just outside of the shape here, click and hold down and drag across the shape. And you don't want to drag all the way across the bottom here. You want to just drag across the top here. So hit escape if you've done what I've done here. And let's try one more time. We're only dragging across the top face, but not to the bottom edge that we see here. So click, hold down, and drag across just till we've gotten across that edge, but no, not too much further, not to the bottom edge, and let go. You'll have something attached to your cursor, but leave that there and press enter. What you've done is you've essentially intersected just this top face. You've used the knife to cut an edge into this top face. Let's not worry too much more about what the knife tool does and what it's useful for. With that done, go back to extrude manifold, click on it. Click once in regular space to deselect everything, and then click once on this face here to select it. Now, we're going to compare and contrast extrude region with extrude manifold. So we'll actually switch from extrude manifold, click and hold down on extrude manifold and go back to extrude region. And then on this circular plus, click and hold down and drag this up. And you see that you have these edges left behind, that's fine. Undo back a step, Control Z. Try going down with it now. So click and hold down and drag it down, and you have left behind this top geometry here. Go ahead and undo, Control Z or Command Z on a Mac. Now let's contrast this to how it would work with extrude manifold. So click and hold down on extrude region and go to extrude manifold. Let's try the same things. If we click and drag this up, you'll notice that you haven't left behind any scars, if you will, no extra edges or faces. And now you can click and hold down on this and drag it down, and you're carving away from this shape. So you can go to there and let go, and you see how you're carving into that shape. So the dissolving of edges is really just getting rid of unnecessary edges and faces as you reshape things. Okay, with that shape now, let's compare a few more things between the versions of extrude tools. So click and hold down on extrude manifold and go back to extrude region. And just to remind ourselves, on the sides here, let's go ahead and click to select one of the side faces. Even if you've still just got a normal cube, it's okay, it'll still work for this example. Then hold down Shift and click on the other side face. So you selected them both. And if you remember, you should be able to click and hold down on this circular yellow plus and extrude in the average normal direction, which means that you're extruding 45 degrees away from the shape. Let's undo that. Control Z on a PC or Command Z on a Mac. Let's switch from extrude region to extrude manifold. So how does this differ? With this one, click and hold down and drag, and it's the same. It's going in the average normal direction, but again, it's not leaving behind any original edges or faces. Now there is this strange edge that pops up, and you're gonna see this at times with extrude manifold as it tries to figure things out, but these edges here for the sides of the box weren't retained. Let's undo back, and let's compare that now to a new extrude tool. So click and hold down on extrude manifold and go to extrude along normals. So now if you click and hold down on this, and at first you go this way and you say, well, what's going on here? I'm now going in the wrong direction. If you are trying to extrude away and it's going the wrong direction, just go in the opposite direction as you click and hold down and then let go. And what you'll see is that you're extruding in the normal direction, but everything's staying connected. So the normal direction for this edge is to go directly straight away from here. But remember that the normal direction for the vertical edge here was 45 degrees away from here. And then this edge here would of course be straight away. And now these faces are figuring out how to stay connected. So they're angling and doing strange things in order to all stay connected while different faces and different edges respect their normal direction. So this can be helpful when you actually wanted to grow the shape on all sides and you wanted it to grow in the same direction that it was already facing. For example, giving an object thickness in all directions. This can be a helpful thing to use extrude along normals instead of extrude along region, which would have done things at a 45-degree angle here. Now undo back one more time, Control Z or Command Z on a Mac. And contrast all of that if you click and hold down on extrude along normals and go to extrude individual. And now let's try again, click and hold down on this. And again, if I move away, it's going in the wrong direction. So if I move up and then let go, now it's saying you selected this face, you selected this face. I'm gonna send them each in their own normal direction. And I'm not trying to figure out how to connect them. So even though I was going away in 45 degrees, it was only going to put those faces in their own individual normal directions. So again, this is all a bit abstract right now, but one of the key differences, if I click and hold down between individual, along normals, manifold, and region, can really be seen when you're trying to do more than one face at the same time and kind of seeing how the different ones behave relative to one another. So if you ever go and you're trying to do something particular and you try one and it's not working quite right, you won't remember exactly which one to use yet. You're too new to Blender, but you can have a little faith that the rule of thumb here, when you're extruding more than one face, if one doesn't behave the way you wanted to, it might be the other. And then the other thing I would say is that if you flip up to extrude manifold, it's the one where when you're thinking about either extending shapes or carving shapes away, it's going to be useful. So if you switch to extrude manifold now you have all sorts of different faces. You can click on this face and then click to drag it up. And you can click on this face and click to push it down. And you can really start to shape things when you have multiple faces. When you use extrude manifold, it can be a little cleaner in how you think about how it might work as you click and drag things around and get that to work. Okay, the last one to consider. Let's go ahead and click on one of the vertical faces. So for me, I'm going to click on this vertical face here to select it. And the last one we're going to try here is click and hold down on extrude and go to extrude to cursor. Now, as its name might make you think, if you just put your mouse a little bit over to the side of that vertical face and click once, it will extrude it to your cursor. Now, the view I have here means that it's going to be real difficult for me to control whether it's going straight or at an angle and what the final orientation of the face will be. So while you could just play around with this in 3D space, let's undo back one step, Control Z on a PC or Command Z on a Mac. And I often find, I don't use extrude to cursor very often, but when I do, I usually want to get myself a preset view so I can be really particular about how I'm using it. So let's try this. On your number pad to the right of your normal keyboard, press 7. That will get you to a top-down view. For me, I can see this edge is selected here, which tells me that's the face I just selected. And now what I can do is in this top-down view, I know that if I click here with extrude to cursor, it'll go directly there. And then I can click here. I can zoom out and click there and there. And it's almost like now I'm drawing in 2D space, where then if I orbit around, I can see that I was able to do something. Maybe if you're doing some sort of duct work or something like that, you could see where you might be able to use extrude to cursor in a more manageable way. Still not totally under control here, and there are things we can do to use extrude to cursor along with some other things in Blender to keep things accurate. But for right now, just important to see how that works and a quick strategy for how you might be able to make that make some sense. Okay, that was a lot to talk about. There's a lot of different things underneath the hood there. And really, no amount of words I can say will help you fully feel and understand how all the extrude tools work. Your best bet right now is to experiment. You have a lot of faces to work with here. Switch to different versions of extrude. Imagine what you think they're going to do before you use them, then try them out with all the things we've learned so far and just play and experiment and make a bit of a mess of what you've got here. As you're doing it, just don't be afraid to click, undo if you need to, and just click around and try things. And then when you feel like you've got a reasonable feel of how it works, you're ready to move on to the next video where I'll have a challenge for you to see if you're already able to use the extrude tools along with some other things you've already learned to come up with some more recognizable shapes.
Congratulations, you made it through the lesson. Did you find this video to be helpful? Let us know by giving it a like. If you're ready for the next lesson, you can find it in this playlist. And if you're interested in learning more about how we can help you build the skills you need, head over to BlenderAcademy.com. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, happy blending!